Hey everybody, this is a cutout conversation from our gaming discussion podcast, Frame Trap. So if you enjoy this, please check out Frame Trap every other Thursday at noon. Thank you.
You did great in practice. Now let's drop you into the final laps of an endurance race in Hakone, Japan.
Bloodworth, you're the racing guy. You just been thrown into it. It's kind of funny how you just got thrown into that. The racing category, the racing guy, just because no one else really wants to do it.
I don't even know if it was necessarily that, but yeah.
You like racing stuff,
yeah.
but...
Yeah, I kind of started sort of quote-unquote specializing in racing games around when Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 came out on the GameCube.
Yeah, I would have said like you or Huber would be our racing guys.
But definitely like a GT... Like, I'd never played... I mean, there were some things like Top Gear Rally on an N64 or whatever, but, like, I'd never played, like, a Forza or a Gran Turismo before, like, I started having to review those at GT.
Yeah.
There was some other... I forget what it was. There was some other, like, lower, like, more, like less visually impressive one of those that I had played first before, like, Forza Motorsport 3. And then, like, GT5 was just, like, I had to... That was, like, one of those games where, like, I had to... That's when I got my monitor, actually.
Oh.
Because I had to review that over Thanksgiving weekend, and I was going out of town like I always did during that time. And so I was like, well, I need to play GT5 while I'm out of town, but I don't want to take over this, like, family's TV the whole weekend. Right. So, like, I went to a Best Buy and got this little slim monitor and, like, stuck it in the back of the car with our duffel bags and just set it up in the side room.
How long were you playing on CRTVs for, Blood? Were you playing on them up till that point, pretty much?
Well, my HD was... Yeah, my HD TV was a CRT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, my first HD TV had, like, got off of, like, Craigslist. Took, like, 4 people to lift.
I think I got my first HD TV in, like, 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
Because I remember playing Twilight Princess on, like, a tube TV or a CRT TV.
Yeah.
Then I got an HD one, and I was like, ew, it looks ugly.
Yeah, I was still playing SD stuff. Like, Fallout 3 I played entirely in SD.
Damn, dude, that's pretty sick.
Until some DLCs came out.
Yeah. I think I got, like, a plasma, because remember the different types were still, like, competing for HD. So I got, like, the plasma one, I think. And, it was like a special with, like, because I got that, an Xbox 360 and Halo 3.
Oh,
like, I got, like, a big bundle at a Best Buy. It was like,
that's a sick bundle.
It's time. It's like, yo, Halo 3 looks sick. Been waiting to get a 360 finally, and, like, I need an HD TV of some sort to play these on. Because I was playing Wii on, like, a CRTV as well. I was like, I don't need an HD TV for Wii, but it's like, I'm getting a 360.
My
I need
SD TV, which I still have in the closet, it has, like, a 16:9 mode where it's gonna, like...
Oh.
That's that thing. But it, like, so it worked great. And, like, older stuff still looks great on that TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wish I had an old TV still.
But yeah, so Forza, obviously, like I said, I've been playing since 3. I actually have gone back to, like, 1 and 2 for various projects. Like, for a lot of years, every time a new Forza would come out, I would do, like, full timeline because they're like they have, like, a lot of the same cars and the same tracks. So it's like, okay, comparison video time. Every Forza that's ever come out, this car, this track, let's do it.
Man, those are the days.
Yeah, and a lot of the replay angles were the same. So, but that's the thing is this time they used to be on this every other year, Forza Motorsport. And then Horizon came in and took the off years.
I do remember that.
And then, it was clear, I think starting with 5, that, like, okay, something is not working out with this production cycle. Because 4 was sort of the pinnacle. Like, 3 introduced a lot and it really made it, like, a gold standard, like, real, like, competitor to Gran Turismo. 4 just killed it with content, and then 5 was the first one on Xbox One where it's just like, okay, now they're, like, kind of starting from scratch in terms of, like, a lot of, so it was just missing a lot of stuff.
Right.
And then 6 and 7, they just, like, the core was all right, but they just were doing weird things with trying to mix up mechanics. It just didn't play too well with me.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive into it. You did play Forza Motorsport.
Yeah.
Just Forza Motorsport. I was very confused at first when I saw that. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah,
that is it.
I've played, so the preview build is basically like the introduction to the game. Okay. So you've got a couple of tutorial races, and then this kind of like mini version of they're like cups when they call it like builders cups, and so they've got a bunch of these builders cups that are usually like 5, 6, 7 races long, but the first one that introduces you to the whole concept is like 3.
Okay.
So it's like basically hour to hour and a half of the beginning of the game. A lot of the other stuff is locked
early.
out.
Okay.
I could have replayed the same tracks that I did, but I didn't really have like options to like free play or time trial or any of the other modes or whatever.
Right.
Off the bat, of course, any racing game and a lot of games this gen, graphics options before you even get into it. So they have 3 modes. They have performance, which is 60 frames per second at 4K, no ray tracing.
That's like Forza, or sorry, Gran Turismo, right? I think Gran Turismo was the same. Okay.
Performance RT, which is 60 frames per second with ray tracing with a variable resolution.
Oh, okay.
So it's not locked at 4K.
Okay, got it.
And then probably Digital Foundry's already figured out the numbers on what it's actually going back and forth on. And then they've got the quote-unquote visuals mode, which is 4K with ray tracing on, but at 30 frames per second.
Got
which
it.
I don't know why you would do that. Anyway.
Well, Isla was
if you're putting
playing,
together a specific video, I guess.
Yeah,
But like,
Isla was playing in what was the last Horizon 5? She was playing in 30 frames per second.
but even that is like a little bit more
we were
acceptable
like-
than playing a sim race game.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, no,
Forza
60
Motor-
frames for racing game only. Blood nowadays.
Yeah.
That's how you got to do it.
Horizon has always had a really great 30 frames per second, though, even before they could do 60, because it's open world. But anyways, Sims 60 better be there, and it is. And it's solid. They added some extra little options on the difficulty stuff. So like, rather than just turning like traction control and ABS, traction control and stability control on or off, there's like an in-between option now that they call Sport, to where like it'll like let it slip a little bit, so you can have that sense of like trying to correct it, and then it's like, okay, if it goes a little too long, it's like, okay, then we'll kick in the traction control or whatever. But yeah, so the way this is set up, like it does you're kind of like just throws you into a couple of cars at first, and then it gets you into this Builders Cup. So you do 2 little quick races where you can just get a feel for things, and that's Maple Valley and then Hakone, Japan, which they like basically put you at the end of an endurance race for that one.
Okay.
And like a faster car. And then they get you into this Builders Cup. And there's a couple of things here that are really cool in terms of like how they've sort of rethought and reinvented just the progression in a lot of the systems. First off is something I've been wanting for Forza stuff for a long time, is that they actually have practice rounds. So practice is kind of like a mandatory part of the progression. So when you go to a race, you do some practice laps, and so you have to put in, I think, like 2 or 3 laps depending on the length of the track, and then there's a bonus objective to like get like a certain lap time, and then you'll get into the race. The 3 starter cars, there's Hero would probably dig these. There's a Subaru STI.
Yep.
There's a Honda Civic, and there's a Ford Mustang.
He would not dig that one.
I went with the STI, and then they have like the difficulty screen where you can like pick between like drive it to our speed, and like they've got like rule set bonuses. So it's like if you want to like take more penalties for like going off track or bumping other drivers and stuff like that, as well as stuff like fuel tire damage and stuff. And then basically, the higher you put those things in, like the more bonus credits you'll get from races. And then your car, so what's your starter car? So you basically are earning like 3 types of currency. So you have your credits, you have your driver XP, but then you have your car XP. And so each individual car
You have to level up?
is earning XP, and it goes pretty fast. Like I was like learning, like I got up to like 8 or 9 or whatever in just the first hour and a half with this car.
Do you know what the cap for cars is?
I don't know.
Okay.
But why this matters is the level that you've gotten XP with your car determines what kinds of parts that you have unlocked between races. So when you upgrade your car, it's basically a matter of like how much time that you put into your car determines what different things. So it's like when you're kind of like low level or whatever, then it's like, okay, you can mess with the air filter and the exhaust and stuff, but it's like, okay, if you want a full conversion, it's like, no, you need to put some time into that car first. You need to get to a higher level.
Okay. We have some questions regarding all this. Do you want to just keep going, though, and we'll get to them at the end? Or
well, I mean, if you hear something that sounds like something
we got
they're
something
asking
right
about,
on here, right? What you're talking about. It's from Beating Down Brian. Hey, allies. I've been hesitant about the car PG system in Forza. In theory, leveling up your car to unlock new parts sounds fine, but I think about how often I need to purchase a new car so I can jump into a multiplayer race that requires a certain car or class of a car. Am I now going to have to level up those cars in single player in order for them to be competitive in multiplayer? I'm worried the system is going to add a huge amount of unnecessary grinding if so.
So I don't know in terms of multiplayer stuff because it's not unlocked at the preview build.
Okay.
However, Forza's tended to have loaner cars.
Okay.
So
We'll do
if
that
you're
again.
going on to multiplayer, I would assume that there would be some form of loaner cars,
Yeah.
and maybe even like some form of tuning to like make it competitive or whatever.
I think this system could be fine for single player and interesting, but for multiplayer, like Beating Down Brian was saying, it might be a little rough. If you feel like you have to grind to just even get into the race, I guess. Because you're going to have to grind for cash probably or whatever as well to buy cars, I guess.
Yeah, but the way that like the Builders Cups look like they're set up, because they all do focus on like different types of cars and those different classes. So I imagine it would probably be just one of those things where, like you need to like invest a little bit of time in the single player. And just like naturally, like by doing some of those like single player campaigns, you're going to have a variety of cars. Unless you're just wanting to jump into the fastest thing first off, you might not be able to do that. But
Bloodworth, someone like me who I only really played Gran Turismo 7. That was pretty much my intro to the series. But I loved license tests, stuff like that. Do you know if there's anything like equivalent to that in this game?
I haven't seen anything along those lines yet.
Maybe not necessarily exactly the same.
I mean, the practice does scratch that itch a little bit because they are tracking like your sector times and stuff like that. And so you will get like bonus XP and credits and stuff for like improving your time on a section of the track.
So is it going to be like, do you like level up and like get a random car? Do you like... all I have for reference is Gran Turismo, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, that I haven't seen, like a wheel spin type of thing like that or Forza Horizon.
Dude, man, those things. I would always just get the lowest amount of cash every time. It was so annoying.
But yeah, that's a fair point that like, these games do tend to just hand out cars like candy. So that's one of the things to be aware of, to watch out for, like when the final game comes out, to see how that car investment plays out versus like how many cars that you just have in your garage that you're not even touching. So, but in terms of like this intro, it's like, you stuck with the one car through the whole cup.
Yeah.
So,
Blood. So you played a little bit of it. How is the game visually looking to you? Car games usually look really nice, very nice showpieces. How's this one looking?
Yeah, it's looking good for the most part. There are some things that are like, they're never a priority in these like sim heavy games. Like the damage is pretty much just like, oh, I bumped that guy, and then like there's a giant huge scrape down the side of his car. And then one thing I do hope gets kind of like tweaked a little bit is the last race I did was a night race.
Okay.
And with the ray tracing, the lighting and stuff, with the high beams and everything, like it looks nice. However, there was a weird thing going on with like the texture on the road, to where it was like the blacks in the noise of the texture were like too dark and like stood out too much. So I felt like you know how like there would be like this like shredded rubber and stuff like on the side of a track after a couple of laps. It felt like I was driving over that because it was just so dark and so distinct, like the noise on the track. And then I like changed camera angles and like, no, I'm not going over rubber. That's just the texture just looks weird in this lighting for whatever strange reason. But that's the only thing that like stuck out to me as being like, like a bad thing. But like there's one point where I saw like some other AI drivers just kind of like scraping up against each other a little bit.
Sure.
It's like, there was like sparks flying and stuff. So there was a nice little touch.
Cool.
But yeah, it is weird because it's like I feel like we've gotten to a point with these games where it's like if you don't put them side by side, they've all looked so good for so long that it's like you kind of have to like pay attention. It's like, oh yeah, I can see my car reflecting in the other car. The ray tracing is paying off right there.
Jimmy wrote in, "Hey allies, I've got kind of a weird concern about the upcoming Forza Motorsport. The way they described the career mode working is that for each race you choose your starting position and the AI difficulty after practicing. While player choice is generally a good thing, this sounds to me like it puts a huge burden on the player to figure out how to tune their difficulty. Any game with difficulty selection requires players to figure out what's appropriately fun for themselves, but having two axes to adjust the granularity of the 7 AI settings and 24 starting positions to choose from, along with all the assist settings, seems like it'll all greatly magnify the hassle and uncertainty of it. I'm worried it'll be almost impossible to race without constantly wondering if I'm making the game too easy or too hard. Is this a reasonable concern, or am I just overthinking it? Thanks for taking my questions. If you do, I respect Jimmy."
Yeah, so they've added a couple of little layers like that. I do think that they, like, even in this section, like, they introduced them, there's, like, a little bit of a time to not totally overwhelm you, but I can see, like, if you're not super familiar, it's fine. Just, like, go with, like, kind of the standard medium settings. The thing that they talked about with the grid position is an interesting new thing that they've added, though, because, and it doesn't even show up until like the 4th or 5th race. But basically, you can make it more challenging for yourself and then get, again, like some like bonus rewards by just going further back in the grid. Okay. And so they'll show you kind of like, if you like say 12 is sort of the medium, if you go down to like 13th or 14th, and it's like, okay, well, if you can get to like 1st or 3rd, you'll get a bonus. If you go like deeper in, it's like, okay, you'll get a bonus if you get like between 2nd and 4th, and so, it's just kind of one of those things where I think if you're wanting to sort of challenge yourself with overtaking and you don't want to just be like looking at the cars in the rear view a lot, that's one thing that you can do. I will say that we'll see kind of like how the AI plays out or like with the penalty systems or whatever. But it did feel like it was really easy to just like barge a guy off the road and have no consequence whatsoever.
Okay.
And even like times where it's like if I would like get into somebody's space a little bit, then they would back off. And it's like, okay, well, cool. So I just kind of like bump into you in a way that doesn't affect my handling too much, and I'm free to go ahead. So I don't know how that'll all play out. I do think though, despite that, I think that the AI feels a little bit more natural. Like you do see like a lot of cars that are sort of trying to vie to get ahead. They're not doing the Gran Turismo thing. It's like, okay, we're all in a little train now, and now you pass this guy, and now you pass this guy. And it's like, I had times, there's 3 cars wide, and like, I guess I'm just hanging back here for a minute. So
interesting.
And so it creates, I think that, I think it creates a little bit more dynamic situations to try to sort out.
I guess, Blood, just your overall thoughts on what you played. Are you feeling good about this?
Yeah, I mean, these games are always hard to totally nail down in like a quick.
So much going on. You have to spend a lot of time with these games to dig in
and find all the nuances and stuff.
Yeah.
I've always found, basically until like the DualSense, I've always preferred the Xbox controller for these types of games. But I do get a lot of good feedback in terms of like the audio positioning of the tire squealing and the feedback and the rumble and the triggers and everything. And so like it's really solid. It's just one of those things where it's like to really see like how these systems play out and like what they're asking about. Like, do you need to grind a lot just to take a car into multiplayer, or like where the little nicks and tucks all kind of work in its favor or against its favor? It'll take time, but I think structurally though, the way that they're working in the practice and the building and the cups, it feels like, yeah, they've totally like disassembled it all and built it back up from scratch rather than just remixing it, which I feel like the last 3 games felt kind of like remixes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, sounds good. We'll find out more when it eventually comes out. I think it's later this year, right?
Yeah, I don't
There's
know
so
the
many games coming
exact
out, it's hard
date,
to-
but it's
yeah.
not. It's like around the corner. Like I want to say November.
Cool,
like
cool.
November 10th
Yeah,
or
we'll
something.
check it out. All right. Thank you, Blood.